It describes how to learn basic commands like line, multi-line, linear dimensions, centerline. Use multi-dimensions, multiple line, Osnap-Info, etc. to make drawing detailing easier. These exercises aim to teach students how to manipulate lines, dimensions, and patterns using different techniques such as offsets, chamfers, and polar coordinates. Understanding reference systems like the XY axis and polar coordinates enhances precision in drawing.
In this video tutorial, we're going to learn how to use sketch techniques, mostly used for 2D technical drawings, in which we'll draw a couple of example parts, drawing sheets, detailing, software configurations, and much more. We'll also learn in this course how to create a 3D part, detailing all dimensions and creating sheet formats. In the future, we'll enter in assemblies, parameterizations, exploded views, lots of cool stuff to see. In this first lesson, let's begin with the introduction to the solid face interface. So, we're just going to look at all solid face environments, where it's located, and all features and tools that we'll find within solid face environments. And we'll start also to draw our first exercise, our first drawing. We're going to start with some basic commands. Right now, the focus will be on 2D drawings exercises, drawing the lessons that are in our exercises book, passing through the first until the 12th exercise. Those are exercises made to practice tools and features for 2D sketches in solid face. And of course, it is detailing, in the end, defining the tolerances, observations, technical indications, and so on. Well, in today's exercises, we'll be learning the following commands: line, multiple lines, linear dimensions, and centerline, all right? And I'll explain the differences between a parametric and a non-parametric dimension. And what does that mean? And how can solid face show us what is and what isn't a parametric dimension? So, starting with the interface, every time you open solid face, you'll see this window. Here you'll find some tool options that will be located in the left upper part of the window. Then, going from the left to right side, you'll see your first option, this command, open. Then you'll have the new drawing, new part, new assembly, collaboration workspace, help, and check for updates. The open you're going to use when you need to open an existing solid face file, right? So you have already saved some part, some drawing when you search the file path and open it here. To create a new file, you need to use one of the 3 environments that are available here, starting with the new drawing environment that is used for 2D drawings and detailing. Then you're going to use sketch tools to make a drawing. We have the new part that you'll use for 3D modeling, and the new assembly where you'll be able to place 3D parts and make assemblies. The collaboration workspace is also a very interesting part of the software, not easily found in other CAD software. With this tool, we'll be able to work in collaboration with other professionals in real time. In other words, I can open my project here, and other designers can open the same project in any other place in the world, and we'll be working in the same part at the same time. And we'll be able to see in real time all the modifications that each user is doing in the project. Of course, you can manage these modifications by giving permission for changes and setting a change as permanent or not in the project. We'll see this a little further on in the course. That's a very interesting tool that you'll learn to use. And moving on, we have the help that will open a textual software tutorial explaining command by command, tool by tool, how to use everything correctly in solid face. That's the famous help that when we're working and a doubt pops out, a specific doubt about a tool or feature, and we can't find any reference, then we press F1, and the tutorial will show up by this help. Well, we also have the check for updates that is used when the software has some updating to do, which is pretty common in CAD softwares. Usually between the release versions released generally at the beginning of the year until the release of the next version, a couple of updates occur in the software. Then, by periodically clicking in this tool, the software will be automatically updated. Now guys, let's get started with our first exercise. I'll put a small pic with the solved exercise on the right side of our window as a reference, so we'll know what we have to do. Once you click in the New Drawing option on the Start window, the window that we saw a short time ago, we'll see the environment that is in our window now. Now, you have to pay attention to the 2 main panels of this environment. The first panel is the modification panel. The modification panel is used for modifications in already made drawings. So since we're about to start our first drawing, we've got nothing to do in this panel yet, and we'll learn more about it later. Besides the modification panel, we can find the operation panel that is used to draw itself. There we have the features line, multiple line, circle, arc, rectangle, polygon, and so on. As you can see, I left open at the end in the operation panel the option where the feature polygon was on. Why did I do that? Because there is something like a toolbox. When you click in the index, you can see more options hidden inside. So I did it to show that there's not just one feature here, not only rectangle and polygon, but many features inside the box that we'll learn about later in the course as it goes on. Then, at the start, we're going to focus on this operation panel where most of the tools we're going to use will be located. Well guys, before we start our exercise, I opened the software because I want to show you how we can change the standard software colors. So, we go to the icon New Drawing over here. And then the sketch environment will open. Then, after we open this environment, I already did a custom color configuration, and I'll show you where we can set this dark theme that most people find more comfortable to work on. We go to this little gear and then click here in the color button, opening the color configuration box where we can find in the upper right side the black theme option. I'd already selected this option before, and now I'm going to change the colors of some entities here. So, as you can see, I'm going to change the thin, selecting this blue color here that changes the dimension color. You can choose the color that you prefer. That's a personal choice. I'll change a couple more colors over here, and then we click in Apply this configuration. Then, OK. Well done! We've set a new color configuration for this file. Now, starting the drawing, we'll click the command Multiple Lines and begin to draw our geometry. Let's start from the origin point. We click to start the line, and then, with the mouse, we give the direction the line will follow. We'll bring the line to the horizontal orientation, and then type the dimension value, 10 in this case, and the line will be made with this length. Now, we bring the line to the vertical orientation. Type 10, and the line will be made. Then, line by line, we'll draw all the lines until the middle of the drawing. When we get to the middle line of the drawing with a length of 30, we won't draw a 30mm line, but a 15mm line to draw exactly half the geometry. And later, we'll use the command Mirror and duplicate the other half of the drawing. After we click in Finish in the upper part of the window, we'll set the dimension positions and confirm its values. We can change its positions to get more organized detailing. In order to do a detailing similar to the image we have here on our right side, we can delete some dimensions to put this information later in another part of the drawing. So I'm going to select the dimensions on the right side of the drawing and put it later on the upper part of the drawing, as shown in the reference image. To do that, we click in the left button of the mouse to open the selection area and select the option Dimensions and Text to select only the dimensions and not the geometries. After the selection, we delete the dimensions. Moving on in the drawing, now we'll start the left side of the geometry, also using the command Multiple Line, starting from the origin point. For that, we use the Osnap-Point endpoint to select the end of the existing line by clicking with the right mouse button and selecting the endpoint. Then, we draw the left part of the drawing, just like we did on the right side. Again, when we get to the middle line of the drawing, we do a 15mm length line to draw just half of the drawing geometry. To use the command mirror, first we select the geometry that we'll use in the command. So we left-click with the mouse to open the selection area and select the Geometry option to select just the lines and not the dimensions. Then we click the Mirror command and select the option Keep Base. Otherwise, by selecting Delete Base, the base selection will be deleted after the mirror operation. Moving on, we select the center point for the command and finish the mirror. After that, we use the command Join Extend to join the middle lines in the center of the drawing. Now, finishing the drawing, we'll use the command Centerline to mark the symmetry line on the geometry by clicking in the midpoints of the middle lines. See that we have two centerline options, the standard with one single line and the double for whole centers, for example. We'll use the option standard to do the line we need. Now we'll learn how to do a chain dimension, creating several dimensions at the same time. To do that, we use the command point dimension and to select all the points that we want to get a dimension for. Then we go to the settings to select the orientation, vertical or horizontal, we want. After that, you click in OK and left-click to position the dimensions. When the alignment of the chain dimension is out, this means that the number's size is too large and we need to resize it. We go to the command General Scale, which is settled with the size 3, 5, and resize it to 2, 5. And notice that now the chain dimension is aligned. Now we do a couple of dimensions using the command line dimensions, in which we select one or two lines we want to get a dimension for. Click Enter and left-click to position the dimensions. All right, you ready to learn some more? So moving on in our course, now we're going to do our second exercise, in which we'll learn several interesting features. First, we'll learn the command rectangle. That's pretty simple. Then we'll see the command relative point that we use to create a geometry based in an already made geometry. That's a very useful command. We'll learn the command circle and review the command multiple line. We'll also review the Osnap reference points, the center line, and dimensions. I'll leave a reference drawing in the right side of the window, and to start the drawing, we'll click the command rectangle and then select the origin point. So we left-click in the origin point and open the rectangle with the mouse and left-click again at any point. Then two dimensions will show up, and when we click, the software will ask the value. Then we set the length and the width of the rectangle. We put the value and press Enter. To do our circle that's going to be in the center of the rectangle, we'll use the command relative point. So after we open the command circle, instead of clicking at some Osnap point as the center of the circle, we're going to select the option relative point and select an endpoint of the rectangle as reference. In this case, I'm using the upper left point. You observe that a red dot will show up, and then you select the point as reference. Then a dashed rectangle will be open, showing you that you will set a point reference in the XY axis from the relative point. Okay, now you click at any point inside the rectangle geometry to create the circle, and click again to set a generic radius value to the circle. After that, an XY dimension will be created, and we'll set the X value as 20 and the Y value as 12.5. Set the center of the circle. Then the radius dimensions will show up, and we'll set the value as 9 and press Enter. The standard is to set the diameter value instead of the radius value. To change this configuration, we double-click the diameter dimension and select Type in the upper part of the window. A dialog box will open, and then we'll select near the OK button the option Show Radius Value and click on OK. Now, in this file, the software will ask and show the radius value instead of the diameter value in the circles. Now we'll draw the rhombus by clicking in the command multiple line and selecting the Osnap reference point midpoint and selecting the center of the rectangle lines, drawing the rhombus geometry. To select the midpoint, we right-click on the mouse and select midpoint in the list, and then select the middle of the line, and we keep doing that until we finish the geometry. Then we click in Finish to close the command. Finishing the exercise, we're going to use the command Centerline and select the option Double to create the center line of the circle. We select the Osnap point center point and select the center of the circle to open the center line size. Now we left-click to set the center line size. All right, almost done. The last thing to do in this exercise is to adjust the general scale of the drawing and to set the positions for the dimensions just as the positions of the reference drawing. We'll also do a couple of new dimensions to show the circle's center position, then finishing our second exercise. Okay, so moving on in our course, now we're going to do our third exercise where we're going to review many commands that we've already seen in exercise 01 and 02, which are the commands multiple line, linear dimension, center line, circle, and mirror. So guys, to start the drawing, we go to the new drawing environment and start with the command multiple lines and start the drawing from the origin. Because the drawing is symmetric, we'll draw half of the geometry and then we'll use the command mirror to do a mirror operation. Starting then to do the lines and giving the orientation with the mouse, we close the first half of the drawing. Finishing the first half, click in Finish and then set the dimensions positions by clicking in the places we want the dimensions to be. We already gave the values of the lines, so now we just have to confirm and set the dimensions positions. We'll delete a couple of dimensions to let the detailing be exactly like in the reference image later. Then we select the geometry to operate the command mirror. And just to remember, we choose the option Geometry in the selection to select just the geometry and not the dimensions and text. We'll also keep the option Keep Base. Otherwise, the reference geometry will be deleted. After operating the command, we join the top and bottom lines. Okay, got it? So now we're going to do the 3 circles of the drawing by using the command circle and selecting the option Relative Point to reference the center points, just like we did in exercise 2. So we click in the option Relative Point and click in a point to reference the XY axis reference to the center of the circle. We open the reference lines and click at any point to create the XY dimensions, and click again to create a diameter value. Then we set the axis values, the diameter of the circle, which is 10 in the y-axis and 20 in the x-axis. The diameter is 10. We use the same steps to do the other circles. Then we create all the 3 double center lines of the circles by clicking the command Centerline, selecting the option Double, and selecting the O-snap point, center point of the circles. Finishing the drawing, we'll use the command line and point dimension to finish the detailing just as the reference image. In order to set the distance between centers of the circles, we can use the O-snap points, center point, or quadrant as reference points.